Welcome to Faith and Freedom. For the next few minutes, we hope to inform, inspire, and encourage you as we discuss legal victories and challenges to your fundamental freedom and religious liberties. Faith and Freedom comes to you from Liberty Counsel, a civil liberties education and legal defense organization. Join us now as Matt Staver, founder and chairman of Liberty Counsel, explains the latest legal issues all across this country. In the courtrooms of America, Liberty Counsel is winning the battle for your constitutional freedom.
Liberty Counsel files an amicus brief before the United States Supreme Court regarding abortion buffer zone restrictions. And we're also going to be talking about what's happening in Albuquerque, New Mexico regarding abortion. Hi, I'm Matt Staver, founder and chairman of Liberty Counsel. Joining me is Matt Barber, vice president of Liberty Counsel Action. Matt, there's two amazing things that are happening. One, a case going before the United States Supreme Court that the Supreme Court will actually decide by June of next year regarding restrictions outside of an abortion clinic. And that is a case in which Liberty Counsel has filed an amicus brief on. It is a case out of Massachusetts. And also, there are some unique things that are taking place in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Let's first talk about this case right now pending, McCullen versus Coakley, before the United States Supreme Court. It's a case involving a Massachusetts abortion law.
Yeah, I was going back over my Constitution, trying to, and some of the Federalist Papers, trying to read where Thomas Jefferson and everyone, where they talked about buffer zones. And I just, for the life of me, I could not find anything about free speech zones or buffer zones, anything that indicates any particular special interest group has a special buffer zone to protect them from other individuals exercising their First Amendment rights. And I could find nothing. Am I missing something, Matt?
Well, you're not. In fact, one of the things that we point out in our brief is that this particular restriction in Massachusetts is obviously unconstitutional, but there's also the so-called ad hoc nullification machine, and that phrase comes from Justice Scalia in a previous decision in which he dissented with respect to how abortion has distorted the First Amendment. Because in typical situations, the First Amendment would not allow these kinds of zones, but the Supreme Court has carved out these special exceptions for abortion. Well, it's interesting that they took this particular case. It's a case out of Massachusetts, and it creates a so-called buffer zone around abortion clinics, crisis pregnancy counselors that seek to give them information as they're entering, or the driveway entrance of a so-called reproductive health facility cannot get within 35 feet of the driveway and the entrance, and therefore they cannot speak to the woman either without consent of the woman coming to the clinic for an abortion. So they've challenged this under the First Amendment. The lower court upheld it, and the Supreme Court has decided to take the case, which is interesting because it wasn't a case in which the Supreme Court was taking a case where the law was struck down. Mm-hmm. This is a case where the law was upheld. Mm-hmm. And so consequently, there's at least 5 justices, it appears, that are not in favor of this law down below at the Massachusetts state level. Yeah,
very interesting. And, frankly, all 9 justices, if they're going to live by what they are sworn to do, and that is to interpret and to defend the Constitution of the United States and to interpret the laws as they were originally intended, and certainly our Constitution as it was intended, all 9 justices should be very troubled by this because it's clearly unconstitutional. But as you mentioned, Matt, what is it about this abortion issue? What is it about this phantom right, constitutional right? Nowhere, of course, obviously in the United States Constitution, for a woman to pay somebody to slaughter her unborn child. It gets this. It's a sacred cow for the left, and they are willing to carve out these unconstitutional protections for abortion homicide.
They're willing to literally sacrifice the First Amendment and women's health on the altar of abortion. That's what they're doing, and it distorts it. And so what we see here is this law that was passed said you can't get within 35 feet of these individuals seeking an abortion unless they consent to you. Well, you can't give them a pamphlet at 35 feet away, and there's no similar restriction that's been upheld with regards to labor picketing. You imagine labor picketers having the buffer zones. There's nothing that is comparable in the civil rights picketing. The big cases like the NAACP case where people were boycotting and picketing these businesses, they didn't have buffer zones, and no one would even think that that would be constitutional. But here we have Massachusetts passing a law giving a moving buffer zone that goes along with these individuals and around the clinics here, and that would be for every abortion clinic. So it's a template across the board. Now, these abortion clinics have a lot of different kinds of configurations. They may be in a office complex, they may be in a standalone building, but no matter, this is a one-size-fits-all law. It makes no sense. I think it's unconstitutional. I think it's a good sign that the Supreme Court is taking the case, and that's why Liberty Counsel is involved in this case. In fact, my first case argued before the United States Supreme Court was on this very issue of buffer zones. In fact, in our case, there was a 300-foot buffer zone around the abortion clinic and a 300-foot buffer zone around any home of anybody who lived with or was associated with the clinic. So any staff member, there was a 300-foot buffer zone around that home. You couldn't get within a football field. And the Supreme Court ultimately struck that down.
Well, Matt, you mentioned early on Albuquerque and New Mexico. A bill banning abortions in Albuquerque after 20 weeks, late-term abortions, pregnancy will be put to voters in New Mexico's most populous city of Albuquerque in November. And this is the first municipality. A number of states have passed similar such laws. Texas and recently did, and we saw the pro-aborts losing their mind over that situation. But New Mexico, Albuquerque in New Mexico is a fairly liberal city, and yet this looks like it may very well pass. 54%, I believe, of voters polled favor this. Only 39% are opposed to it. It looks like it's got a good shot.
Yeah, this is the first ever municipality that has sought to pass a law. Of course, this year there's been a number of states that have passed laws similar to this and other similar restrictions on abortion. But never have we seen a municipality, a city, pass a law. And this is called the Pain-Capable Unborn Child Protection Ordinance. And it contains the few of the standard abortion exceptions seen that are in many states. I mean, it's a very stringent law. And it passed the city council by a vote of 5-4, and it now goes to the ballot. So this year in November, the November 19 ballot in Albuquerque, the people will vote on this. It actually says that, indeed, the measure would make it a crime to perform an abortion after 20 weeks of pregnancy. It states that pain receptors are present throughout the unborn child's entire body at 20 weeks. Exceptions are granted only to save the mother's life or if continuing a pregnancy risks substantial and irreversible physical impairment of a major body function for the mother. The physician is required to try to save the life of this child as well. And we had supporters collect 12,000 signatures to get this on the ballot. But like you said, already the polls show an overwhelming support of this particular measure. So if that support holds, this is going to pass by an overwhelming margin.
Yeah, how can anybody in good conscience, with a straight face, knowing that the science has proven conclusively at 20 weeks that a child, an unborn child, feels pain, and these are children that are being dismembered alive, cooked alive in chemicals and saline and so forth, feeling horrific pain, perhaps even a heightened level of pain, because at that age there's some evidence that indicates that they're even more susceptible and receptive to pain. How can anyone in good conscience, people that will step over a baby seal to make sure that somebody can kill an unborn child, how can they in good conscience say that there is any justifiable defense of not banning abortions at 20 weeks when a baby clearly feels pain? Don't trouble me with the science is their motto, I guess.
Yeah, I think you're right. This is nonsensical, to say the least, if you really start to think about it. And I'm reminded of Ray Comfort in his video called 180. In fact, you can Google it or search it on the web and say Ray Comfort 180, and you'll find the actual YouTube connection. Over 4.1 million people have viewed that video, and he goes out on the streets and talks to people about abortion. And they begin saying that they're in favor of it, but as he begins to talk them through this, they end up changing their mind. It's a very convincing video. I would encourage you to watch it. Over 4.1 million people already have. I also encourage you to go to our special website, lifeunited.org. That's lifeunited.org, and there you'll see the 180 video there as well. Share it with your friends and your family and people in your church. It's a way for you to be able to engage individuals, even if you are pro-life, so that you know how to be able to speak to someone who's thinking the other way, or maybe not even thinking at all. The video is very powerful. LifeUnited.org is our website. You can also go to Liberty Counsel's website, lc.org, and you can make an online credit card contribution and other contributions available right there on the website, lc.org.
You have been listening to Faith and Freedom with Liberty Counsel. We hope that we have motivated you to stand up for your faith, family, and freedom. We can accomplish a lot when we work together. Get informed and get involved today. Sign up for our free monthly newsletter, The Liberator. We will send it out to you free of charge. Stay informed with our Liberty Alert email updates. Just click on the website at www.lc.org or call us at 1-800-671-1776. Tune in next time to learn more about your rights right here on Faith and Freedom.